Today is June 26th, 2021. My name is John Swain, and I'll be conducting this oral history interview with Ahmed Dorghoud, a Marine veteran of Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. Today, Ahmed will be sharing his experiences serving with Bravo Company, 4th Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, from 2009 to 2010. This interview is pursuant to the practicum requirements for American Military University's Master's Degree in Public History. It will also be submitted to the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress with the goal of sharing and preserving the voices of veterans. Ahmed, please state your name and birth date for the record.
My name is Ahmed Dorghoud. I was born on November 22nd, 1986.
Where were you born?
I was born in Cairo, Egypt.
And who are your parents?
My parents are Omar Dorghoud Omar and Hayat County.
When did you and your parents come to the United States?
We moved to the United States in 1999.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 13 years old.
Why did they move to the United States?
My father's job, my dad was a flight attendant, and his job pretty much moved him from Cairo, Egypt to the United States.
How did you and your parents feel about coming to America?
We were excited. We've visited. Like I said, my dad was a flight attendant, so we used to travel all the time, and we've come to the United States before for a visit, and so I kind of knew what I was going to get myself into.
Tell me a little bit about your life before the military.
So when we moved from Egypt, we moved to Alexandria, Virginia. This is where I went to middle school and high school there. Played sports all throughout high school, and and then graduated high school and joined the military.
Did you have any family members who were veterans?
So back in Egypt, all males have to serve. My dad served in the army in Egypt for about a year, but other than that, like veterans in the United States military, nobody.
When did you first show interest in the military?
It's kind of cliche. Growing up, I was, you're always, attracted to all these war movies and stuff, and so the military is always an option. I always had to think for it. So I would say pretty much all my life, but definitely, it became a reality once I graduated high school.
Do you remember where you were on September 11th, 2001?
I was in the ninth grade at home. What do they call it? Like home. It's not homeschool. It's
home ec.
Home ec, whatever. Yeah, I remember. So again, I went to school in Alexandria. So we actually, my school felt the shock when the pin hit the Pentagon, and I remember we felt the shock, and I remember seeing the smoke from my window, and ninth grade, I didn't really know what was going on, and that's when we got the word that about 9/11.
How'd the news hit you?
I didn't know what to make of it. It's funny. My first thought, for whatever reason, I was like, man, these damn Russians. And obviously it wasn't that at all. And I remember, going home, and Mom was like, yeah, Bin Laden did it. And I'm like, who's Bin Laden? It's like, growing up, you don't know about these, this stuff. And so I got a nice history lesson from Mom about who Bin Laden was. And I was like, okay, all right, now. That was really my first experience, first time really hearing about Osama Bin Laden, who he was.
Why did you choose to join the Marine Corps?
So I was, believe it or not, I was in Army ROTC in high school, throughout my high school career. And it came down to the Army and the Marine Corps. And honestly, the Marine Corps recruiter just did a better job, to be honest with you. And he was more squared away, and he had his stuff together. And it's funny, he's actually an LAR guy too. And and he just sold me. And and I looked at the branches, and I was like, yeah, I want to be a United States Marine.
What did your family think about your decision to join?
So I didn't tell my dad for a while. I actually hid it from my dad for the first a year or two. My mom covered for me, and actually the first year, and my dad didn't know. And then I finally told him that I was actually in the military right before I left for Iraq. But back then, he was obviously upset. And then, but it's funny. You talk to him now, he's like, super proud and stuff, and the things that were accomplished. But yeah, back then, he's upset. So,
Were you able to choose your job in the Marines?
yes. So as a reservist, you get to pick your job, and I actually went in as a tow gunner in the Marines.
What did you think about becoming a tow gunner?
It was cool, and it's funny because I remember I was talking to my recruiter. I was like, "All right, listen, man, like, I'm really I want to be in infantry, whatever, but back then I was like, but I don't want to walk a lot." And he's like, "Okay, I got the perfect job for you. You're gonna be a tow gunner." I'm like, sweet. And then I honestly didn't know anything about it until I went to SOI, and yeah, and then you know which is the fun. It's funny because I joined the Marine Corps not to walk around, but both of my deployments I got 11, walking around all day. So
When did you ship to boot camp?
I was at boot camp 2 weeks right after high school graduation, so July of 2005. I think I was there in July 2005.
What brought you to Bravo Company, 4th LAR, just over the course of your first couple months in the Marine Corps?
It's actually my battle buddy in SOI, JT James Taylor. You know, he was my battle buddy, also a fellow tow gunner. And then I remember after boot camp, after SOI, I'm sorry, they sent me. I was sent to Kilo Company in Moundsville, West Virginia, where they didn't have any tow gunners, and for whatever reason, they wanted to send me back to SOI to become a machine gunner. And I said, "You guys lost your freaking minds," And so I remember calling JT on the phone. He's from Maryland, and obviously Bravo Company. And I was so upset. And he was like, "Why don't you just come to Bravo Company? We're going to Iraq anyway." I'm like, "Okay." So the day I checked in Kilo, I asked for transfer to Bravo Company, and that's how I came to Bravo Company.
What did you think of the unit when you checked in?
So I checked in right before we activated for Iraq, and we we went to AT. So we went to AT in Quantico that year, about a week or two before the actual activation. So I checked in, and I felt like we just hit the ground running, training and stuff from that. So you know, new Lance Corporal, new unit, it's kind of trying to keep my head low, just trying to, do my thing, and just hit the ground running with training.
Talk a little bit about your personal life during this time. Your first, right before you went to Iraq.
So, I went to college in West Virginia at the time for about a semester or so, and that's when I got the word about I was going to go to Iraq. So I was a college student. So obviously, I dropped out early from that semester to get activated.
Did you know anybody else in the unit aside from JT?
No, just JT.
Do you remember when you first heard that you'd be going to Iraq?
Well, I knew that from JT over the phone that he told me we're gonna go to Iraq. So, yeah. So I knew I'm going to that unit to deploy.
Did they tell you anything about your mission in Iraq?
He didn't tell me anything really, but obviously when I showed up, I knew it was a LAR unit, and and then when we showed up, it obviously wasn't that mission at all. It was it was a Riverine unit. We're Dam Security, DSU. We're Dam Security Unit 3. When we went over there,
How old were you at the time?
I was 19 years old.
And you said you were a Lance Corporal. Did they stick you in with the toes, or?
No, so they actually stuck me in with headquarters because born and raised in Egypt, so I speak Arabic fluently. So the idea was that I was going to be with headquarters, and I was going to be attached to pretty much be by the CO side all the time to go out and speak with whoever. That turned out wasn't the case to be at all, and she ended up going out on all the patrols instead, which was great. I was busy. I was hooking and jabbing the whole time. It was a great experience. Yeah.
Tell me a little about DSU.
So again, so we got the mission from 4th LAR to be, this boat company. We had about a 4.5 months to 5 months workup down in Lejeune. Great workup. And then we all pushed overseas to Iraq. The mission was to pretty much secure the Euphrates River and the lake there behind Haditha Dam. So at the time, I believe it was. So I mean, Haditha, that dam provided electricity pretty much for most of the country. So it was a pretty important location to secure.
Can you talk a little bit about the boats that you were on?
So they call them Cirques, small and pretty decent equipment. We had a lot of good firepower on it. In the front, we had a couple 240s, 50 cal in the back, or Mark 19. They can fit. So they got the boat captain and the coxswain, and obviously 3 gunners and about a team of infantry dudes on that. So it's a great piece of gear. They can go full speed and turn 180 on the dime, and yeah, it's a good piece of gear.
Is there any event that happened in Iraq that sticks out to you, or a couple of events? Anything?
I would say when we first got there, our first week or two, up to say a couple of weeks when we got there, we said, we're gonna get on the boats and push north on the river until we can't go north anymore. I believe the initial plan was just to push to Syria, and I believe the operation was called Lewis and Clark. And we pushed up, and a boat got stuck. Everything that could go wrong pretty much went wrong. Murphy's Law, one boat got stuck, another boat lost both engines type thing, and we had to get the boat out. And long story short, so we cut the mission short. We had to go back. The problem with the river is there's one way in and one way back, so we couldn't really deviate, take another alternate route. And that's where we get ambushed. We get ambushed 3 times in one day. We had to fight our way out of three ambushes. We had 1 Marine that got seriously wounded that day. He got to get medevaced. But I would say that was my welcome to Iraq. About a week, 10 days in. So.
Did things continue like that? You saw a lot of ambushes further on in the deployment.
Yeah, more or less. Like I said, so we'll push. A lot of times because we were go-getters. We'll go out there and and do our thing, and we'll patrol the shores or whatever and support all these different units. So yeah, a lot of time we get a decent amount of firefights when we're in Iraq.
Did you have a lot of contact with the locals?
Yes, all the time. So we at one point we went out there and did this census thing, and we would go out there and get people's names and put them in the system and grids and whatever. So yeah, so I dealt with locals pretty much almost every day.
Who are some of your closest friends in the unit?
JT, but he. So when we got to Iraq, so we had 1 platoon. We had 2 platoons in different spots pretty much, and JT wasn't with me. So I had JT. When I checked in, to circle back to your question, when I checked in to Bravo Company, Henry Vasquez and Rodriguez, we all went to high school together. And I didn't even know they joined the Marine Corps until all 3 of us were just happened to be standing in the armory line. And I'm like, Henry? Like, oh. And yeah, so, these 3 guys, these 2, yeah, that was pretty much it.
Were you close with David Smith during deployment?
So Smith and I, we came up as Lance Corporals together. I wasn't really that close to him, but Lance Corporal Mafia is strong. So we're strong in that aspect.
What do you remember about him?
He was a very outgoing guy, and he was loud. He was a loud dude. I remember that about him. Very outgoing, and he was about the work, man. He was he was a go getter. He was a good dude. He had a lot of knowledge, and he was a good dude.
When did you first get word that you'd be cycling home from Iraq?
So I can't remember the date exactly, but we actually came home early from Iraq because we ripped with the Navy. So I believe it was the first Navy grunts that took over, and those dudes were interesting, but we're not gonna get into that. But they did their best, whatever, and so we ripped with them, and we actually got home a little earlier.
Do you remember when exactly you came home from Iraq?
I think I got back April or May, 2007. Yeah,
How were you welcomed back home?
it was cool. Like I said, so we got to Lejeune, and then I remember we took the buses. We spent like a few days in Lejeune to take post deployment classes, whatever, and then we remember got on a couple buses and we rode up to Frederick, Maryland, and this when all had the families there, and it was pretty cool homecoming. Yeah.
Did you have any encounters with people who were protesting the war just over the next couple of months after you came back from Iraq?
Not when I came back. I remember before I left for Iraq, when I was in Kilo Company. Remember, so I was there for about a few months before I went to Bravo, and I was a pallbearer for a funeral for a Marine that died in Iraq, and so we were out in West Virginia, and what's that church's name that used to show up to
I don't remember.
something Baptist church, whatever it was. So they showed up to protest the funeral or the war, and it was actually pretty cool. Um, Bikers showed up and they just shielded them out from where we were. So that was really my first encounter, and that was before I went to Iraq. So yeah.
So what did your life look like over the next couple of years after you came back and before the 2009 deployment to Afghanistan?
I came back. I I was 20 years old. I was wild, man. I wasn't reckless, but I was wild, because in my mind, I just survived this war, survived all these firefights, and, I kind of had this feeling that was, unstoppable, looking back at it now, and, like, man, what is this dumb guy doing? But, when you come back from deployment, I call it like your first 6 months is like your honeymoon period, especially as a reservist, So, you come home and everything is great. You made all this money, as a 20-year-old. You're partying all the time and doing this and doing that. And then I would say after the 6 to 9 months, that's when reality sets in. And, because your life stops for a year when you're gone, between your workup and your deployments. But your life stops, but everyone else's life just keeps going. So you come home and now you're kind of playing catch up, especially as a reservist. So with that said, so after that, so I was like, all right, I gotta go back to work. So I got a job. I worked in the private school sector for a little bit, and then I coached high school, coached wrestling and lacrosse, and then. I actually ended up going to college to wrestle in college. Yeah.
Was that in West Virginia?
No, that was a small school in Virginia. Yeah.
When did you first receive word that you'd be deploying to Afghanistan?
It was about 3 years, about 2.5 years to 3 years after I came back from Iraq. I don't remember the exact date exactly, but I remember I was still in college, obviously, and we got word that we were going to go to Afghanistan. We are going to push out again as an LAR this time.
How did you feel before going on your second deployment?
I think personally I was, because first deployment I really didn't know what was going to go on, what's going to happen, what I was going to get myself into. Second time, I think personally, I think I was a little bit more ready. not really. I want to say ready, but like I just like okay, I've been here before. Like I know what to do now. Like whatever. I was a little bit more mature. I think at least I think I was. Uh, but yeah, I think like personally, I think I was ready a little bit.
Did going to Afghanistan feel different than going to Iraq? Just the idea of it?
A little bit. Um, I believe that before we left for Iraq, we were, as a company, we were ready. Our workup was great. Uh, we did everything. Our leadership did everything that they could do, possibly do, to get us ready for that deployment. I personally thought Afghanistan wasn't. First of all, Afghanistan was a battalion deployment. It was a fourth LAR deployment. Uh, Fourth LAR as a battalion is terrible. As individual companies, they're great. Individual companies will go out on patrol. Will do different missions. They're great, but as a battalion, they should even come together for a barbecue. To be honest with you, so that was the first issue. And then our workup. Um, we went out to 20 down Palms for our workup, whatever, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think our workup was more geared towards Iraq than Afghanistan. Because I think the best training we've had in 20 down Palms, it wasn't the training that was on the schedule. It was the training that we did on our off time, because I remember you have to give us X amount of days off, whatever. And I remember we take out the LEVs and we'll go out in the middle of the desert and we work on formations, whatever, dismounts and all that stuff. So we got lucky that a lot of the Iraq veterans were now NCOs. So I think that glued the company together. I think that's what personally happened. That's what made us survive that deployment.
How old were you at this time?
I was 23 years old.
And what was your rank and billet now?
At that time I was a corporal and I was a team leader.
What did they tell you about Bravo Company's mission during the buildup?
So this time was going to be an LAR mission where we're going to go and to an Anbar province and just take over that AO. And like I said, personally, on my lower end, I didn't really get that much information. In my mind, I was like, cool, I'm getting deployed again. Here we go. I honestly didn't really care what we were doing, or what we were doing. But obviously, once I got there, reality set in.
What did you do to personally prepare yourself physically and mentally for the deployment?
So before you deploy, obviously you got to get all your things in order. Your next to kin stuff, your wills and stuff, and which is kind of funny doing a will at 19 years old or 23 years old. But luckily at the time I didn't really own anything. Just my car maybe. So I think I left that to my brother in the will. But so you get all the stuff in order. Physically, I was 23. It was pretty good shape back then, and but I made sure that my team at the time, and I was just trying to use the experiences that I had in Iraq, just kind of instill that in my team, and to physically get them ready for the physical demands that's gonna because in Iraq, I mean, we used to go out and patrol from sunrise to sunset all day, walking around. I didn't know that was going to be the case from now. We obviously had LEVs in Afghanistan, but in my mind, that's what I thought it was going to be.
Can you talk a little more about the build-up training?
So we were. I personally didn't think the battalion leadership got us ready for that deployment. We spent half of our time on the ramp out there in California, cleaning vehicles that we're not going to take to Afghanistan with us. We got really good at doing SL3, I can tell you that. But and then eventually, so we spent some time in California, and then we went out, took the vehicles out to 20 on Palms. And that's where we did that training. Forget what the training was called.
Mojave Viper.
Mojave Viper, yeah. So we did that and had role players. Role players were cool. Role players come out there and uh, patrol the city, whatever. And we used to take, we took, got in the ticks there and RPGs and but like I said, but I think it was more geared more towards Iraq than Afghanistan. Um, but yeah, like I said, the only thing that kept the whole thing together were the NCOs from Iraq.
When did you leave for Afghanistan?
We left in like late October, maybe early November, 2009.
Who did you leave behind?
Just my immediate family: mom, dad, brother, and sister.
How'd you say goodbye?
I remember just saying bye to mom and dad again for maybe the last time, and yeah, just said goodbye. And I remember my buddy. I didn't have them drop me off at the airport. I had my buddy drop me off at the airport. So, you know. So.
How did you get to your area of operations in Helmand Province?
So we took a. So I was stationed out at the time. We were stationed out on the West Coast. So took a flight out from the West Coast. Had a layover in like Connecticut or something. And from Connecticut we flew to Germany, and then from Germany we flew to Afghanistan. And from that we went to Camp Leatherneck, and then we got on a helo, and then we went to the castle, and we landed in broad daylight. I remember that we came in and we dumped our packs, and we did a little 360 security around the helo and in broad daylight. And Mess Sergeant Hilton came out, and he was like, "You guys better hurry up because we just took IDF in this spot not too long ago." And I'm like, "Here we go." So.
What were your first impressions of Helmand Province?
It was more or less, I want to say, the same as where I was in Iraq. Again, heavily vegetated areas. Obviously, different people, different culture, way different culture. But again, it was just I just treated it like just another deployment, man. It was. I mean, I was there to do a job, and my biggest thing was just to get my Marines home.
What was the mission that Bravo Company was expected to conduct in Helmand Province?
So the first 3 months we were there, 2 or 3 months we were there, we spread out our platoons, so 3 platoons, including headquarters. So we had 1 platoon at the castle, one platoon at Kuala Lumpur, and my platoon were at Shabu. And we just, just go out there and punch out patrols every day, do OPs every day. We had a vehicle checkpoint set up there, VCP set up. That was pretty much it. That was our first 3 months we were there, and yeah.
Did the transition with 2nd LAR go according to plan?
It went really well. I remember we had a pretty good rip with 2nd LAR. They're as professional as they can be. They answered all questions that we had, and they really showed us the ropes of hey, this is what's going on here, this is what's going on there, and different patrol routes.
Do you remember the first mission you went on?
I went out with so when you do a rip, you go out with key leaders go out and patrol, and I remember going out with one of the squad leaders. I think we went down to one of the villages down south. I don't remember which one exactly, but it was a few hour patrol and came back.
What did an average day look for you for the first several weeks?
So again, we go on patrols. Staff Sergeant Chris at the time, so he did a like a schedule thing. So each team had like a kind of like a rotating schedule on the squad, and in the platoon. I'm sorry, and so we would have from this time to this time you're on watch, this time to that time you're on patrol, this time you had OPs at night, and then your rest time. So just pretty much just rotating from OPs, patrol, watch, rest.
What was your relationship with the locals like?
Uh, If I remember, I think we that one village down south didn't really like us too much, but for the most part, they're all just kind of like just I mean, this is their life. It's kind of like I'll leave you alone, leave me alone type thing. And uh, I remember one village a little further out. They were like super poor. They had nothing, and uh, they were just. I remember asking me for blankets one day or something. So like nothing really too special. We had so nothing really too special.
What about the Afghan security forces you worked with?
They were an interesting bunch. So they were the border patrol dudes. Um, I mean, you go there, from deployment for like 6 to 7 months, maybe 9 months at a time. But I mean, this is their life. They're there. This is their country. This is their life. So, uh, they're, but I believe like they're a little bit more lackadaisical with the everyday operations. Uh, we're a lot more disciplined than they were. Uh, but I mean, they were out, on every patrol. They're out there with us. They're doing their thing, and you know, they weren't bad.
Did you have any translators you worked with?
Yeah, we had two guys, Danny and Kay. They were good dudes.
What did you do with any free time you had?
Uh, I slept a lot. At least I tried to. I remember you guys making fun of me for sleeping all the time, and I'm like, dude, you just gotta conserve that energy, man. So I slept. Watched a lot of movies. Had a lot of movies on my computer. Whatever. Uh, Too much shit. I didn't mean to call home too much. I made that a point. Like I didn't call home that much
Any
on,
reason?
on both deployments. It's nothing to really talk about, to be honest with you. And you know what I'm gonna tell him? Hey, I went out on patrol today and I got shot at. Like this, and I don't want to make him worry. There's really nothing to. So
What was the biggest threat you faced?
IEDs, I would say so. I mean, we took bunch of rockets. They would shoot a bunch of rockets at us here and there, but I mean, they're terrible. They would just fly right over our heads. But IEDs, I remember, we found a bunch of IEDs, and that one IED that went off on the EOD guys were out there, and then I remember that one IED that we found on top of that hill where I sent you guys up, like a few days before. Um, yeah, it's mainly IEDs. That was a big IED, from my understanding. Yeah.
When was your first contact with the enemy?
I didn't really have direct contact with the enemy over there. However, I remember the first time we were out on night. We were on our way to a night OP, and I think Goat set off an IED across the canal, and yeah, and I remember because they're obviously watching what we do in our patrol, where we patrol, and they set it up where we usually patrol at almost every day, or every other day, whatever. So yeah, thank God for goats.
Were there any patrols or operations that stand out to you other than the ones you mentioned?
Um, Remember, I forget what squad it was. It was a Jai squad that went out and got in that little firefight. I think they came up on a couple of dudes like setting up a rocket or something, and they had the EOD guys with them. And I remember I just got off of watch, and I'm trying to lay in my cot to go to sleep, and I hear a firefight in the distance, and I remember thinking, no, this can't be it. And so it was like, I forget, either you or somebody else was like, or EB maybe. And he was like, yep, this is it. So we ended up being a QRF. So I remember, hauled ass and went out there for the QRF. So, yeah.
In January 2010, Bravo Company embarked upon its first large-scale offensive against the Taliban. The operation was codenamed Western Light. Do you remember the goal of Operation Western Light?
Yeah, we were gonna go out and secure Tagaz. I believe that was the next Taliban stronghold at the time, and so our platoon, first platoon, we came in with our vehicles. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we came in from the south, and then third platoon uh, came in on Ospreys, and the plan was to secure the bazaar from there, and we came up. We were clearing the route on the way up there, at the same time.
What was your role within this operation?
So like I said, our first few months we were there, it was just straight foot patrols every day, and so this was the first time we truly started working on LAVs again, with LAVs. So again, I was a team leader on my team, on Red 4. I don't remember my call sign was, to be honest with you. And yeah, so we were out there and sitting back at LAV watching the engineers do their thing, and then eventually would get out and get in that nice V formation and in front of the vehicles and looking for triggerman. And so yeah.
Did the operation go smoothly?
I mean, as smoothly as you can get. I mean, I remember we got to where we were supposed to be, and we took over this compound, and it was in the middle of everything, really. Super not safe, but I mean, we did what we had to do. I remember because we came up in vehicles, so we had our C wire with us, and so we were able to set up, create distance between us and whoever wanted to go in, if they wanted to go in. So.
On January 23rd, 2010, Bravo Company's 3rd Platoon was struck by a dismounted suicide bomber as they occupied their patrol base in the Sarandakileh Bazaar. The platoon suffered mass casualties. Can you tell me your recollections of that event?
So, my team, we were on a vehicle checkpoint. We set up a hasty vehicle checkpoint at the time, and I remember the explosion went off from the other side of the bazaar, so where 3rd Platoon was, and we were standing on the other, where we were on the other side of the bazaar. This big cloud of smoke. Didn't know what was going on. It's all civilians running everywhere, and I remember Miller and somebody else came out running from. It was almost like the movies, man. Like, he just came out running from the smoke, and like, hey, I need, we need help. I remember him saying, "Doc Chi is down," and he ran right back in the smoke again. And it sucks because I had breakfast with Doc Chi that morning. For some reason, he came to our position to pick something up, and I remember I was making fun of him about something, and he was just a goofy guy. And yeah, he went back and got hit about a suicide bomber, I believe. Suicide bomber just walked up straight to their COC and just blew himself up. Captain Graham took a QRF with Doc Garcia was with him, and Danny, the interpreter, and QRF was pretty much most of the platoon, and they went down there. I stayed. Me and Vasquez manned the checkpoint. I think you went down. But yeah.
How did you cope with the loss of your friends during the deployment?
It was pretty hard, because that was my first. I mean, they half of the platoon went out, man, and it was hard because that was the first time. I mean, in Iraq, I mean, we had one casualty, but he was fine. You know, not to knock him down or anything. But that was the first like KIA uh, that I personally experienced, and my biggest thing was to just to stay busy, because if you harp on it during the deployment, then it's just not gonna you're not gonna survive, and that's how you get killed. That's how you get other Marines killed. Just if you just stay busy and just keep pushing.
When did Operation Western Light end?
Uh, I don't remember the exact date, to be honest with you, but I know we were out there for a few days, and I think we had Cop McDonald. We set it up back there. We stayed. Set up a coil in there in McDonald for like a day or two. Took a couple of mortar rounds there or something. Remember that. But other than that, and then we pushed back to Payne. I think Alpha Company came in and took over that from us, but eventually they left too. So I don't. So
What did the company do after Western Light?
we started operating out of Payne pretty much. This is when we really truly became an LAR unit. So we jump on in the LEVs and we would push across the Helmand River. We had an army dudes come out there and would ferry us across the river, and we would go out there and just live out the vehicles for 10 to 15, 20 days, do some LAR operations and come back.
Did you feel the company was well suited for that mission?
Not at 100% before we left, to be honest with you. However, Bravo Company is really good with adapting, and that's exactly what we did. Whether if it's a boat mission, a straight leg mission, an LAR mission, we were just tell us the mission and we're gonna pick it up and run with it. And this is what this company is good at.
Do any events of the next few months stand out to you?
I remember in the initial when the push for Marja. I remember we acted like an outside cordon for Marja. We didn't go in or anything, but we intercepted, I believe, a couple trucks with a lot of Taliban dudes with orders to go to Marja and fight us, which is kind of funny. And I remember we brought them back to Payne, and we had to take care of them pretty much. So we housed them, and so we went from being these high speed LAR guys to prison guards. So yeah.
On March 24th, Bravo Company received word that their battalion sergeant major, Robert Cottle, was killed along with his driver, Lance Corporal Rick Santani, when their vehicle struck an improvised explosive device. Do you remember when you first heard this news?
Honestly, I don't. I think I was still on Payne. I don't know the exact date or what I was doing at the time, but it kind of hit me a little bit because I met Sergeant Major Cotto a couple times before that, and he was a great guy. I actually still have his card because he was gonna try to give me a job with LAPD when we came home because he was an LAPD SWAT sergeant. I remember that. But yeah, that's when we got the word about it.
How long did Bravo Company's interdiction missions last?
About a few more months. So we were spread thin. I remember that. Not only we're doing interdiction missions, we were also doing base security and battalion commander really liked Bravo Company because I believe he used to be a Bravo NCO back in the day. I'm sorry, a Bravo CO back in the day. Which is cool, but man, we're spread thin. Doing all these 12-hour base security stuff and coming back and going on missions across the river, but it probably lasted a few more months until we eventually ripped out.
Do you remember when you first got the news that you'd be rotating home?
Honestly, no, but like, I mean, you expect it. You're there for like, 5 to 6 months. You kind of know the day is coming. Uh, yeah, so you just know it's coming.
Did you feel that you had accomplished the mission that you set out to complete?
Yes and no. My The mission that I personally had was to bring all my Marines home. I accomplished that mission. Um, Now, whatever mission that we had as a battalion or a company, um, yes. Did we secure the area? Yes. Did we go on a patrol and presence patrols? Yes. But again, I'm a little pawn in the big scheme of things. I don't know what exactly goes on upstairs, but I mean, after Tagaz, we did our thing, and then when we left, they left. Like we gave it back to the Taliban. So I don't know what was going on in that thinking, but so to answer your question, yes and no.
Did you feel that you had made a difference?
I like to think so, um, because it wasn't only combat patrols. We'll go out there and um, we did like an aid. Uh, People come up like, hey, I need this medical help, whatever. So I like to think so. Yeah.
When and how did you leave Afghanistan?
So we got there. I'm sorry, we got home. We left again like April or May, something like that. 2010. Uh, Again, just trekked back. From Paine to Leatherneck. Spent a few days at Leatherneck, and we stopped at Kyrgyzstan. I'm sorry. From Kyrgyzstan, back to the had a layover in Bangor, Maine, and then yeah, back to the West Coast.
How were you welcomed back home?
So again, first, like I said, so we landed in the West Coast because we're technically out of the West Coast. No welcome there. It was just straight business. We went home, went back, and turned in all our SIF gear and did our post deployment don't kill your wife classes and yeah, but flying back to the west to the East Coast, it was really cool. Again, landed in the airport and we got an escort from the bikers, I think, or the police, up the highway and got to Frederick, Maryland, and my family was there and it's pretty cool.
What are some of the things you remember most about your service in Afghanistan?
Just honestly, man, just living like embracing the suck. It's grunts say that all the time, and when you're in the suck, because Cebu, we're out just 20 something dudes with a bunch of Afghan guys alone and unafraid, in this remote area, getting rocketed every other day, and with no running water, electricity, and just embracing the suck with your friends, man. Like you know, that's what I'm gonna remember.
At what point did you become a U.S. citizen? After you moved to the United States, between then and now.
I became a U.S. citizen in 2006 or 2007. I actually got it when I was in Iraq. They pulled me out of the front lines and they said you're gonna go to Balad Air Force Base to get your citizenship. So flew me out to Balad. You know, going to Balad Air Force Base after being on the front lines for X amount of months, it was like a mini vacation, man. I went out there and got my citizenship and sent me right back. So
What are some of your thoughts about the war in Afghanistan as a whole?
again, I'm just a small pawn in a big scheme of things. If you wanna, if you ask me if the war was necessary, sure. 9/11 happened and somebody had to pay for that. Uh, Somebody's ass needs to get kicked, but other than that, it is what it is.
Do you have any regrets?
No.
How did your service in Afghanistan affect the rest of your time in the military from then until now? You were still in the Marine Corps.
So I just used the leadership examples from that deployment, because again, for the we did not have the best leadership at the time, in the, whether battalion level or company level. So I tried to use that as a baseline for me of what not to be as a staff NCO now in the Marine Corps, and how to lead my Marines, and how to treat my Marines, and how to get them to respond and to what I'm asking them to do.
Did your service influence your civilian career?
Yeah. I honestly, like, it's cliche, I wouldn't be here right now for the Marine Corps. Right now I'm a police officer in DC, so I guess it worked out.
Do you feel that your country is grateful for your service?
I'd like to hope so.
Well, Ahmed, thank you very much for taking the time to sit for this interview. As you know, this interview will be submitted to the Library of Congress to be preserved for the benefit of future generations. So it's possible that your descendants will be watching this interview in the future. Is there anything you'd like to say to your descendants who may be viewing this?
No, not right now.
All right, Ahmed, thank you very much.
Thank you.